Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Been a little bit of a quiet week in the world of college basketball. Feels like college football has been crazy. We've been talking portal. We've been talking NIL. This guy's entering. This guy's pulling out. This guy's whatever. But there is some intriguing college hoops over the course of this weekend. And specifically, I do want to preview one game that I'm very intrigued by this coming Saturday, 5:30 or so Eastern time. It is the CBS Sports Classic. It is Kentucky versus Ohio State. Now, as of right now, there is no point spread. I think Kentucky will be probably, I would guess, a 6, 7, 8-point favorite. They should be a comfortable favorite coming in. But let's go ahead and break it down. This is Kentucky's last big game before the gauntlet of SEC play begins. Ohio State, by the way, the last time we saw them in a marquee game, it was not pretty. From the Kentucky side of things, listen, first of all, first game, just period, since the Louisville game last Saturday. We know this time of year, there's finals, there's this, there's that. It's a quiet time on the college hoops calendar. But I think coming out of that Louisville game, I think it's a good time to recalibrate, think about what you do well, think about what you're not doing well, and kind of get forward and get ready again for what is ahead in SEC play. The positives from the Louisville side of things, big picture with Kentucky, listen, goes without saying, Lamont Butler, wasn't just good, was literally historic against Louisville. We talked about it last week, but it is worth repeating. 33 points, 10 of 10 shooting from three, 10 of 10 shooting from the field, 6 of 6 shooting from three. The stat that Jay Billis kept bringing up, he had made 7 3-pointers all year. Not that he isn't capable. He just hadn't taken a ton, but he hit 6 of 6 at Rupp Arena, 10 of 10 from the field. I believe that is the third most shots taken in a game without a miss in Kentucky history. So Lamont Butler was unbelievable in that game. But I think beyond Lamont Butler, I think there was a lot of positives. And to me, I think the single biggest positive was you really, again, can see that this team has so many different guys that can beat you on any given night. Listen, I know the big conversation coming into this season, was there an NBA guy? Was there a go-to guy? I think you really have about 4 guys that can get you like 15 to 20 a game, depending on the game itself. Lamont Butler had 33 the other day, but Otega Oweh had 17. Otega Oweh, to me, listen, I saw some comments in the comment section about I thought Torres was overhyping this team in the preseason. Shout out Torres. Listen, I could take credit for a lot of things. I did not know Otega Oweh would be this good for Kentucky, 17 points against Louisville. And I think the important thing there, I'd had a couple bad games in big spots, specifically the Clemson game. We know how that game ended. So for him to bounce back and play as well as he has the last couple weeks, played great against Gonzaga, played well against Gonzaga, I shouldn't say great, and then did play well against Louisville as well. I think that's a totally positive sign. In addition to Otega Oweh in that game, Jackson Robinson has 12 points, Kobe Brea 10 off the bench. If you're looking for things that hopefully Kentucky, if you're a Kentucky fan, things that got cleaned up, it goes without saying, 3-point defense has to be better. Now, to be fair to Kentucky, they had been pretty good around the perimeter D, 3-point D all season long, but Louisville just could not miss, especially Chucky Hepburn in that game a week ago. Louisville 14 of 39 from behind the 3-point arc. That's about 36%. We know they were banged up. We know they were in foul trouble. So you have to clean it up, especially against an Ohio State team that is actually a pretty good 3-point shooting team, although I think their numbers are maybe a tiny bit deceptive. I think the other thing from Kentucky's side of things, just getting consistent post play. That's going to be important in this game. I'll explain why. Mari Williams, 6 points, 8 rebounds in that Louisville game, but also it was kind of Brandon Garrison, right, that made some big plays that, he was kind of in that scuffle, over by the Louisville bench late in the game. Thought it was interesting, by the way, Mark Pope talking about Amari Williams throughout the week. Basically, like, this kid cares, this kid fights, but we have to reiterate to him just how special he is because sometimes kind of gets in his own head. I actually pulled the quote. Let me hear it. This is what Mark Pope did say about Amari Williams. He said, let me tell you, Amari Williams, he might care about this more than anybody I know. Like, he cares so much and he wants to perform so well, so badly, and he brings so much out of the games. One of the things that he's working on is moving on to the next play with a whole heart And that's a challenge when you care as much as he does and our guys do. He made some unbelievable defensive plays early against Louisville, a couple spectacular plays, and then some plays that he wishes he could take back. One, love that attitude from Mark Pope. Love the attitude of coaching him up, excuse me. And I love too, I saw this, that Mark Pope actually has Alvin Brooks, one of the assistant coaches, pull tape specifically of body language. Who has the right body language? Who has the wrong body language? Who's sulking? Who's sad? Who's happy? Who's smiling? Who's cheering on the bench even when they're not playing? And I think that's going to play out well over the course of this season. I think Amari Williams will have a very good game in New York City on Saturday evening. Speaking of that game, speaking of Amari Williams, let's get to the Ohio State side of things. Only way to put it is strange year for Ohio State. Thought they did really well in the portal. Got, of course, Aaron Bradshaw from Kentucky, Sean Stewart, a former McDonald's All-American from Duke, Micah Parrish from San Diego State. Really like the pieces that they brought in. And then they have that opening night win against Texas. I mean, I remember doing a show the day after opening night, and it was like Ohio State was a revelation. The John Mobley kid, I was not familiar with your game. Well, he was excellent in that Texas game. 14 points, 4 of 4 shooting from 3. He looked awesome. The team looked awesome. But since then, it's just been kind of weird, right? That Aaron Bradshaw suspension, nobody really knows exactly what happened. There's speculation, there's rumors, there's innuendo. I'm not going to get into speculation, but he's been out for a while. It appears as though he could potentially be coming back for this game. He has been reinstated. Then right as you kind of clear up the Aaron Bradshaw situation, what ends up happening? Michi Johnson, your starting guard who was at Ohio State, transferred to South Carolina, comes back. He's supposed to be a veteran presence. All of a sudden, he's out for this game with an undisclosed kind of separation from the team. So just weird vibes overall. I do think if you're looking for positives, the guard play at Ohio State has been really good this year. Bruce Thornton, kind of a veteran guy. He's been around the block. I say veteran. He's only been there 2 years, but, stuck through with the previous coaching staff, Chris Holtman, with this one with Diebler. And so he is a guy that, of course, is playing pretty well this season. The Eric Mobley kid to me is a revelation because, we spend so much time on this show talking about recruiting, talk about all those 5 stars, the top 20 guys, McDonald's All-American guys. By the way, did I say Eric Mobley? Eric Mobley is Evan Mobley's dad. So I want to say John Mobley. To John Mobley, I apologize. Eric Mobley is an assistant coach at SMU. If I said Eric Mobley, I apologize. John Mobley, 12 points per game this season, shooting 54% from 3. And as you look at this Ohio State game, I think that is the big question. Can you slow them down from behind the arc? Now, I will say, I think those numbers are maybe a little bit deceptive. Let me explain why. I think in some of the bigger games, Ohio State has struggled to shoot the ball against some of their better competition. Let's put aside them playing Auburn last week in Atlanta, which was a bloodbath, but Auburn is just that good. I'm not going to hold it against them. Take out the Auburn game. You go back to some of these other games of recent note. 6 of 18 shooting from 3 in a win against Rutgers. So that's 33%, obviously. And then a loss to Maryland earlier in the season, 4 of 19. That's about 27%. And so, yes, they're shooting 40% from 3, but also on the season, they're shooting well. But against some of their more high-profile opponents, they're struggling a little bit. Really quickly, I think the other big thing, they just don't have enough size, especially without Aaron Bradshaw. I think, getting him back could be key for this game. But I would also say big picture, Aaron Bradshaw, with due respect, I mean, Kentucky fans know he's not Janai Broome. He's not Hunter Dickinson. He's not Zach Edey. He's not a guy that's just going to be in the paint and get you 12, 13, 14 boards a game on size and strength alone. And we've seen that impact. Ohio State. I mean, this was one of the most jarring stats that I have seen in a while. So one, last week against Auburn, and Auburn is phenomenal. They're the best team I've seen. I've said that consistently. Auburn was plus 21 in rebounding last week against Ohio State. Auburn had 49 rebounds. Ohio State had 28. But here's the crazy part. Ohio State finishes the game with 28 rebounds. Janai Broome had 20 alone. So Janai Broome basically had the same number of rebounds as Ohio State. It shows you the impact of not having size down low. And because of it, I'll be honest, listen, I could dance around it. I could beat around the bush. I think Kentucky wins this game. I think Kentucky wins big. First off, I think the time off will be good for the team. 2, I think it's kind of worth noting the scheduling of this game actually helps. It's in New York City. We know the fan base that Kentucky draws when they play at Madison Square Garden. I've seen Kentucky play in Brooklyn. I've seen Kentucky play at MSG. I've seen Kentucky play in that tri-state area. It's a huge contingent. It's also worth noting for any Ohio State fan that hasn't given up on the football team. Remember, the Ohio State football team plays basically 8 p.m. Eastern. This game will be ending right around that time. So I wouldn't assume Ohio State's bringing a very big fan base. I would assume any Ohio State fans that live in the area are probably going to be finding a place to watch the football game. So I just bring it up because I don't think it's good. I think it's going to be 90% blue in Madison Square Garden for that game. I think Kentucky wins. I think on top of it, I think just the matchups favor them. You're going to get a better version of Amari Williams, one, because the matchup just favors him, but two, I think he's going to play with more confidence. And then the guard play, the three-point shooting, all that stuff. I really like Kentucky. I also think the three-point defense is going to be much better. Statistically, they have been excellent in that category this year, even if they weren't against Louisville last week. I think this could get ugly. I think Kentucky wins comfortably. I'll say 84-70. And that might even be pushing it a little bit as far as I think it could get worse than that. Remember, Ohio State lost by 38 to Auburn last week. So I think picking them to lose by 18 or 20 isn't that big of a deal. I just think this is a bad spot for Ohio State, a bad team to play when you're thin, not only in the front court, but even in the back court with Michie Johnson as well, in a place that is essentially going to be a huge home court advantage. And I think for Kentucky, I think Mark Pope, listen, he's a level-headed guy, but I think he wants to see the best version of this team. Because, again, after this game, you got one game, and then SEC play starts on January 4th. It's coming quick. You want to see your team round into form. I think Kentucky does just that. I think Kentucky wins, what did I say, 80-64, 84-68, whatever I said. I'll say 84-68, final pick. Kentucky wins. Kentucky wins by about 16 to 18 points.